A princess is named heir, then cast aside the moment a son is born. A kingdom splits in two, not over good and evil, but over birthright and blood. It happened in Westeros, but it also happened in England in 1135. Here's why House of the Dragon feels so real, and all the historical parallels it's based on. Let's go back to where it all began. A real civil war. One with no dragons, no swords made of Valyrian steel, just broken promises, bruised egos, and a throne too powerful to leave empty. They called it the anarchy. England, 1135. King Henry thirst loses his only legitimate son in a shipwreck. That leaves one heir, his daughter Matilda. So Henry does what no king had done before. He names her successor, makes the barons swear loyalty, not once but 3 times. But when he dies, those oaths vanish. Fast. His nephew Stephen shows up and grabs the crown. A man, a known name. The barons switch sides. No war speeches, no thunder, just quiet betrayal in a cold hall. And in House of the Dragon, history repeats itself, only with more fire. King Viserys has no surviving sons, so he names his daughter Rhaenyra as heir. Officially, proudly. The lords of Westeros bend the knee. But then comes Alicent, a second wife, a new queen, and sons. 3 of them. Suddenly, the realm starts to shift. Not loudly, not all at once, but enough that when Viserys dies, his wishes are ignored. Aegon is crowned before the body's even cold, and Rhaenyra, left out, lied to, locked away on Dragonstone. It's not evil, it's not shocking, it's tradition. But that was just the beginning. Empress Matilda's war didn't burn fast, it burned slow. 19 years of dragging feet, shifting loyalties, and towns caught in the middle. There were sieges, betrayals, half-made peace talks that fell apart the next day. And after a while, people stopped choosing sides. They just wanted the fighting to end. The country split, then sagged. Not with fire, but with exhaustion. In the end, they made a deal. Stephen would keep the crown. But when he died, Matilda's son Henry would take it next. So she lost. But not really. She didn't get the throne. But her bloodline did. Now look at Rhaenyra. She might lose the war. Might never sit the Iron Throne. But her son, he's still in line. Her name still matters. Her legacy still lives. That's not fantasy. That's history wearing dragon wings. If House of the Dragon stopped there, it would still be one of the most realistic takes on succession you'll ever see on screen. But it doesn't stop. It goes deeper, because the real story isn't just about who wins. It's about what it costs. Medieval Europe didn't play fair. It played by rules carved into stone. Eldest male first. Always. That was the pattern. That was the excuse. And that's exactly what strangles Rhaenyra's claim. She's not weak, she's not unprepared, she's just not a man. And in Westeros, like in Europe, that's all it takes to make you invisible. Matilda learned the same lesson. Royal daughters weren't meant to rule. They were meant to marry, to seal alliances, to birth the next king, not be one, even if they were first in line. Even if they had more brains, more backing, more guts, a woman was still just a warm-up act. So when Rhaenyra gets pushed aside, not because of failure, but because of tradition, it doesn't feel like storytelling. It feels like déjà vu. And the show never lets you make it easy, because Aegon isn't just some villain in a cloak, he's also Viserys' son, a true-born Targaryen. And the realm hasn't forgotten Harrenhal, the great council that chose a man over Princess Rhaenys just a generation ago. That's the precedent. That's the rulebook. And once it's written, it's hard to burn. And that fear only grows when the heirs are children. History loves a young king, the kind who can't tie his own armor but somehow holds the fate of a kingdom. And behind every boy with a crown, grown-ups pulling strings, mothers, uncles, councils, the people who really run the show while the kid plays dress-up. That's exactly where House of the Dragon gets mean. Aegon doesn't want the job. Not really. He drinks too much, acts out, ducks responsibility like it's contagious. But none of that matters. The second his father dies, people scramble. Not to follow his lead, but to control it. His coronation isn't some grand event, it's a cover-up. Rushed, sneaky, done before Rhaenyra even hears the news. The people in charge don't care if Aegon's ready, they care if they're safe. And this isn't a fantasy twist. This happened all the time in medieval Europe. Boys barely out of the nursery being declared rulers while adults use them like chess pieces. Make a deal, arrange a marriage, start a war in their name. And if the kid steps out of line, he's gone. Quietly, permanently. That's why Aegon and Rhaenyra are both dangerous, not just because of what they want, but because of what they represent. A split, a challenge, a story nobody can agree on. And while the realm argues over heirs, the real danger hides in plain sight, at court. House of the Dragon shows it all. But that's not fantasy. That's history. That's how real royal courts worked. The Hightowers, the Valerians, the Strong family, they don't just want justice. They want power. And they'll smile while taking it. In Europe, it was the same. The Plantagenets, the Bourbons. Their palaces weren't just homes. They were battlegrounds. Gossip was a weapon. Marriages were strategies. Trust didn't exist. So what happens when whispers stop being whispers and go public? In House of the Dragon, justice isn't served behind closed doors. It's loud, messy, bloody. Heads fall in front of packed crowds. Orders are shouted from balconies. People cheer, people flinch, but no one looks away. Because that's the point. It's not about right or wrong. It's about putting on a show, and it's not made up. In medieval Europe, punishment was performance. Executions were announced, staged, and watched like sporting events. Beheadings, burnings, hangings. Not to bring peace, but to scare people into silence. To remind them who's in charge. It didn't matter if someone was guilty. What mattered was making an example. So when a character in House of the Dragon dies in front of a crowd, it's not just shock value, it's history. Real power isn't quiet, it screams, it bleeds, it draws a crowd. And even when the swords are sheathed, the real weapons never stop. They just look softer. Marriage. Not about love. Not here. Not in Westeros. And definitely not in royal courts. In this world, weddings are contracts. Power grabs dressed up with flowers. One family gains ships. Another gains a name. Nobody says I do without counting the cost. Rhaenyra marries Rhaenyra because she has to. His name matters. His house has power. It's not a love story, it's a survival tactic. And when that marriage falls apart, she remarries. This time to Daemon, her uncle. Another move. Another alliance. Not for comfort, for control. Sounds harsh, but that's exactly how it worked. Back in real-world history, royal families traded sons and daughters like playing cards. One wedding could start or stop a war. Henry VII married Elizabeth of York to end 30 years of bloodshed. Not because they wanted to, because they had to. The result? The Tudor dynasty. A whole new era born out of a political deal in white lace. So when you see Rhaenyra choosing partners like battle plans, or Alicent guarding her children like gold, or Otto pulling every string to plant his bloodline in the throne room, it's not fiction. It's strategy. It's survival. Because love can be broken. Legacy can't. And in this story, legacy isn't just about names or heirs. It flies. Which brings us to the part people think is the least real, when maybe it's the most honest of all. The dragons. No, they're not real. There were no giant fire-breathing beasts flying over medieval castles or torching rival cities. But in House of the Dragon, they mean more than just myth. They're not just cool creatures, they're a warning. The dragons are power, pure, unstable power. The kind that can't be reasoned with or controlled. They're weapons with wings, like living warheads just waiting to go off. Everyone knows it. That's why they're feared, and that's why they're used. Because in this world, once one side uses a dragon, the other has to respond. With more fire, a bigger beast, a deadlier strike. It stops being about winning. It starts being about not falling behind. That's how real wars spiral. It's not about who's right, it's about who hits harder. In Matilda's time, it was armies, castles, endless battles that wore a country down to nothing. In Westeros, it's dragons. But the destruction feels the same. And by the time they're in the sky, the damage is already done. But the scariest part of House of the Dragon, it isn't the fire, it's what's left behind. The show's loud when it needs to be, screams, swords, explosions, but the moments that really hurt are quiet. A dinner that feels like a funeral. A king begging his family to stop fighting. A stepmother and stepdaughter trading glances like daggers. No yelling, just tension. And a sadness that never really goes away. Because this story isn't just about thrones. It's about family. The kind of family where love and hate live in the same room. Where no one says what they mean. Where everything's breaking, but no one knows how to fix it. You don't need a crown to know that feeling. That's what makes the show hit so hard. Not the magic, not the dragons, the people, the silence. The way it all feels way too familiar. Underneath the armor and fire, House of the Dragon is about siblings who don't speak. Parents who try and fail. Kids who grow up surrounded by pressure and end up cracking from it. It's not just history, it's a mirror. George R.R. Martin never wrote fantasy to escape reality. He wrote it to expose it, to twist it, to make you recognize yourself in people who ride dragons and sit on thrones. And somehow, it works, because the story of Rhaenyra and Aegon might be fiction, but the story of power, betrayal, and bloodlines, that's real. That's history. The names change, the dragons don't exist, but the pain, the politics, the way legacy gets put above love, that part never went away. And House of the Dragon, that's the truest fantasy you'll find on TV. Thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments below what part of history you saw reflected in the show, and which scene still sticks with you long after the fire fades. See you next time.